Hello and good evening and welcome along to the West Yorkshire Football Show. It's our midweek Leeds United show with myself, Stephen Brown, and joining me as ever is Jason Booker. Guys, if you're watching along, please do like the video, subscribe to the channel and get your comments in. A big thank you to Jamie Rayner from the BBC as well, who's just been on with Chris and Gaz all about Bradford City. So if you want to check that out, please do have a look on the channel, but obviously not whilst we're talking about Leeds. Jason, how are we doing, my friend?
Yeah, very well, mate. Very well. Disappointed that we've not got club football on this weekend. I don't even know who England are playing. That's how little interest I have in this international break. It's a ridiculous time for an international break, but we could do a whole show on that, couldn't we? Wouldn't be very entertaining, however. So yeah, mate, I'm good.
Yeah, it's not a good time, is it, for an international break, especially when it gets going for Leeds. Obviously, we remember towards the end of last season, I think the last international window actually really killed us, didn't it? So not a big fan of them in these parts indeed. So yeah, we just thought we'd get on, have a little chat about all things Leeds United, looking back at our form in August, the transfer window, assessing where things are, and obviously talking about a couple of things that have come up in the news as well. We're going to start off, though, you probably saw it on the title of the show as well, about Farke and his feelings on the transfer window. His post-match comments from the game the other day kind of suggested that he's not 100% happy with the transfer window. I want to bring up these comments from Farke that he said in the post-match interviews here. I just want to get your take on this as well, Jason, see where you think his head is at. So Farke had this to say. He said, "We're not the finished product. It's not like we have the individual quality like last season, where perhaps an opponent is sitting deep and then we have the magic of Cree or Jorginho Rutter, who can, with one situation, cut an opponent to pieces." And he went on to say, "We have still got work to do. And for that, it's fair to say, after so many key players left us, who in this league were dominating in their position, we maybe don't have the brand anymore to be the big favourite. We've brought interesting players in, but also players who are not completely proven or mature at this level. So for that, it's a bit early to praise them right now and their qualities." So Jason, is Daniel Farke just downplaying what was a very good win at the weekend and an improvement in the form, or is he actually a little bit concerned with the quality of the squad? I mean, he did as well, and we brought this up on our match review actually, where he kind of said the club had decided, kind of separating himself a little bit from their decisions. He's saying they decided not to bring a number 10 in. What do you think, mate? Is this just classic managerial downplaying, or maybe something a little bit deeper?
I think Farke has shown himself to do this quite a few times, to be honest. I think he likes to try and create a facade and a kind of an appearance that we or the club are a little bit behind where we are, or temper expectations is probably the best way of putting it. Going into the start of last season, I would argue that Cree Somerville and Jorginho Rutter, in particular, who is exampled in this kind of passage, were both unproven as well. Somerville especially had a handful of good games in the Premier League during that Christmas period under Jesse Marsh. That aside, he wasn't playing games. He was behind Willie Gnonto for pretty much the majority of the back end of the season. Gnonto was probably the one that we expected the most of stepping down to the Championship if he was going to stay. Rutter, we didn't have a clue at the beginning of last season, the kind of capabilities that he had. All that you had was a £35 million price tag, and the fact that hopefully should make somebody have some footballing ability. But what we'd seen in the Premier League was next to nothing. Well, it was nothing, was it? We were talking in the group chat the other week about the minutes that he played. I think it was 190 minutes of football he played in the 11 appearances. Most of them were from the bench, and he never had a chance to really make an impact in the Premier League, given everything that we had going on. So I don't think what he says makes any sense whatsoever. If anything, I would argue that the players that we've now got are probably a little bit more proven. Your Brendan Aronsons and your Manor Solomons, these are proper players that have done it at top flights in spurts with Aronson. But Manor Solomon has done it in the Champions League. He's done it, to a level where he's got a 5-year deal and a move to Tottenham Hotspur in the Premier League. Like these are not mugs. Even Ramazani, you can argue has been playing top flight La Liga football for 2 or 3 seasons now. Tanaka obviously had a season in the second division of Bundesliga last season, but he's capped 27 times by Japan. He's played at massive international tournaments. Like, I don't get it. I don't understand what he's trying to say. Like, it makes no sense, if I'm honest. It makes no sense at all to the reality. No. I don't think.
No, I think definitely. I don't think the wheels came off in the transfer window, but I think there would. I could imagine that he was feeling a little bit dismayed, especially when Rutter went off. I think at that point, because I think he'd said repeatedly it's going to be a lot calmer, this kind of thing. It's going to be more settled. We're going to be in a better position 12 months on than we were last August. And let's be honest, it did get a little bit chaotic. I always think if you're coming down to the last day of the window and you're kind of on the edge of your seat waiting for transfers, it's probably gone a little bit, not awry, but, maybe more pieces of the jigsaw had to get put together. So I think there's probably legitimate concerns he's had over that. However, I agree. I look at that squad and I look at the performances, certainly Sheffield Wednesday and the whole City performance, and I don't know. I think it's better. I think the team looks better. I think that the fact that we've got two proper fullbacks. Last season, we're playing with Graham, we're playing Byram on the left, and it didn't quite work in that way. We had this situation where I was so reliant on Rutter getting that ball deep and dribbling it past a few players. For me, I think it looks a bit more fluid. I think it looks a bit more exciting. It looks a bit more like there is those attacking patterns than that obviously a few fans, probably myself as well, have questioned at times. Is what's the variety of tactics here? Well, I think we've looked very, very good in those last two games and a lot of promise there. So I am surprised that Farke's kind of even name dropping Cree or Rutter, to be honest.
Brownie, I think he's a bit insecure, if I'm honest. And I like Daniel Farke, I do, and he's got my full backing, and I still, I keep always saying this. It's like I have to caveat it, but I think he's the best man for the job. I still see the fact that he's achieved over 90 points 3 times in this division and won the league twice. Like, I still believe in all of that, but I do think he's a bit insecure. And I can't help but hark back to the big man when it comes to this. Like, there's absolutely no chance after the window that we'd had that Bielsa would have said that. He'd have been like, we've got the players to be able to do what we need to do to achieve what we need to achieve. I'm very, and some of it would have been towing the line of the club. Some of it would have been that, to back the ownership and all the rest of it. But a lot of it would have been because he just believed in his methods and believed in the players that he had. And I do kind of like find myself scratching my head with this a little bit with Daniel Farke, in that, he should have full belief in this. And maybe he does. I'm sure he probably does. But the external image that he tries to portray in the media is very much a case of try and temper the pressure down. Try and temper the pressure down. And maybe I think that's more for him than the players, personally.
Well, I agree, actually. I think there is maybe an insecurity there, because I think the Leeds United job for him, well, let's be honest, were any Premier League clubs this summer looking at Daniel Farke?
No.
They would never think of Daniel Farke in a million years. If, I don't know, Everton sacked Dyche, or if one of the bottom half teams sacks their manager, nobody's looking at Farke.
No, you're right.
Why though? This is a guy who's, like you said, 90 points 3 times in the Championship. It's because that top level, he's bombed. He's bombed at Norwich, and he didn't really set the world alight in the Bundesliga either. Yeah. And I think Leeds United is his opportunity, and I think he knows that it's maybe not his last opportunity, but it could be, well, one of his final opportunities actually to get a big club and to have a big opportunity. And I think there is that pressure there, absolutely. And I think the problem was, and what I was really surprised about last season, Jason, with all his experience and the type of personality he was, is how it went off the rails in the last few weeks of the season. I think that is a concern. That is a concern. Because like I said at the weekend, everyone bangs on about last August. Yeah, but last April cost us as well after that international break. And
we've seen it with big managers before. No, you're right. But we have the conversation about Neil Warnock in our group a lot. Yeah. He couldn't deal with it at Leeds United. He couldn't. Yeah. Not in the Championship. He couldn't. And we've seen it with other managers that have come through the doors as well, along with players. Even Bielsa, season 1 towards the back end, struggled to deal with the demands of Leeds United, but what it did to his team. You know, that we've seen it. We've seen it in that second leg at Ellen Road just alone.
Yeah.
You know, what can happen? So, I think it's a great point. And, you know, hopefully it doesn't rear its head again this season. I mean, I think a lot of that will be down to the strength of the league and what we're up against in competition, because I think no matter what hoodoo you have to deal with, or, you know, how big the club is and the pressure, I think eventually that is overtaken by quality. And I personally believe our team is just so much better. Like, I do. Like, I don't think it's my own team bias. I just think the players that we have on paper are so much better than every other team around us.
Yeah, well, this is what I mean. It's when any other manager give the right arm, wouldn't they, for players and those signings and, you know, everything like that. I mean, I guess it kind of leads into kind of a bigger and wider debate in football, and the fact that, look, we know what Leeds made in sales, over £100 million in sales this summer. Obviously, they had quite a large bill to kind of pay off from the Premier League years, and maybe they didn't push it in terms of transfer fees as much as fans thought they would, or hoped they would, believed they would. And it kind of leads to a question of, you know, you look at what's just happened with Leicester. So they had the ruling come out yesterday. They're not going to get a points deduction. They've appealed it. They've won the appeal. And it almost feels like, you know, the guy who robbed your house and he's got away with it scot-free. You know, he's kind of there and he's taunting you. You know, they've got the Premier League life again. We've had to sell, particularly Archie Gray, you know, jewel in the crown, you know, for this PSR nonsense now, which I just don't think it makes any sense. But I mean, how frustrating is it to watch Leicester kind of, you know, up there in the Premier League and no punishment, no balance to it, is there? They've basically just done what they've wanted, it feels like, almost. And because of this kind of loophole they've managed to get through, it's almost like relegation actually helped them. Relegation actually helped them get out of this kind of Premier League kind of ruling, and then they've come back up, and there's no, you know, the rules in the Premier League, rules in the Championship, there's no consistency. They don't use the same rules. It's like two separate entities. I mean, it's just a mess, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it absolutely is. You know, before we went live, we were talking about the kind of disconnect between the EFL and the Premier League. And you consider the fact that when Villa got promoted to the Premier League, if they'd have stayed in the Championship, they'd have faced serious points deductions and punishments from the EFL, which then it just doesn't add up, because you're letting them get away with cheating, and the teams that are then left behind of them being punished by them not following the rules. And not only then do you not get punished in the event, which I think is one problem in itself, but you then don't even feel the effects of a punishment thereafter. So you hopefully would either come back down, or, you know, you struggle to come back down. You know, when we got relegated, Everton and Forest both stayed up at our expense, yet they then got points deductions the season after, which just makes no sense. And they got away with it because the bottom end of the Premier League was so weak the season after that they ended up really never seeing a punishment. And now Leicester get themselves promoted, so they would have been punished. They were under a transfer embargo in the EFL anyway. They've now escaped that again. And now the Premier League, in which they did break the rules off before they got relegated, and they would have seen a punishment had they stayed in the Premier League, now are not able to give them the proper punishment. It just makes no sense. It makes absolutely zero sense. I'm so confused by, I think we all are, by the landscape of football in this country in general. It feels a real mess. And I mean, right now, PSR serves absolutely no purpose whatsoever. And I mean, you know, I feel sorry for Leeds as an entity, aside from being a fan of theirs with regards to all this. But I feel particularly sorry for Everton and Forest, if I'm honest, because as fans, it's not fun when your club's going through points deductions. Nobody actually wants to see that. No other rival fan really wants to see it either. But they've been punished and kind of gone through the mill in the last season with regards to taking points deductions, and then they see Leicester actually break the rules more than them and get nothing.
It's bizarre, isn't it?
It just makes no sense, mate. It makes no sense.
How did we get to this point in football, though, where this is the debate? We're talking about PSR, and we all have to act like
be an accountant, don't you?
Accountants to do it. You know, it's just ridiculous, isn't it? I think there's got to be some point that we reach where we start again, where we just look at the rules and everything, and it just has to change, because this is absurd. This is just nonsense the way it's going on. Interesting comment here from Gavin. I get the feeling the 49ers are not 100% convinced on Farke and maybe keeping funds back for January if Farke not here. Who knows? I mean, it's strange, because that was the other thing with his comments as well. You've got to be careful, haven't you, as a manager, to when you start saying things like that. We know obviously the extreme example, Scott Parker when he was at Bournemouth and he was giving the management a good kick in it whenever he could.
Yeah.
You've got to be a little bit careful, because for me, he's got the tools. He's got the tools there to do it this season, and there's no excuse, as Gavin said earlier.
I think they're fully behind him, if I'm honest. I think they are 100% in on Daniel Farke. I think we'd have seen a change in the summer if they weren't. I think there were definite murmurings around, whether he was the right person for them and for the club in the summer. They backed him. They then were prepared to sell the big assets, and they're still expecting promotion. I'm still fully 100% in the camp that we mean very little to the 49ers as a bigger entity, as a bigger picture, if they have Leeds United in the Championship. They need us in the Premier League, and they're trusting Daniel Farke to do that 100%. But yeah, I do agree with you in that Daniel Farke's, I think, sailed a little bit close to the wind a few times when it comes to some of the things that he said, especially the comments before the move started to happen. In terms of needing bodies, and I mean, he was right, but he will have known the plan. The way that they were going to look to carry this window out. They did it last window. They've talked about moving in that kind of way in transfer windows before openly. Later on into the window, good deals become available. And I mean, in hindsight, guys, you have to say that they've been spot on. I've made the point about Ramazani before. 9 million quid for him is a joke. And when you consider some of the monies that were being spoken about 18 months prior to the Premier League. Solomon obviously is a loan, but would that deal have been available earlier on in the window? Probably not, because Spurs were still sorting out their squad, and he might have had more attractive offers or what. And I mean, the two deals that we did towards the back end in Schmidt and Tanaka for a combined total of around 5-6 million quid is an absolute joke. And Tanaka doesn't even seem like it was the first choice. Lubicic was probably before him, and Gus Heyman was the other one. So we've kind of tried to obviously recruit as efficiently as possible, and we've ended up, I think, with the best one out of the three for the value. I think him is probably a more ready player, but for the 15 million that he'd have cost us to the 2.7 million, by the way, for Tanaka, which has been reported this week, he's just an absolute joke. And that's down to great work by the 49ers. And along with that, we've signed Willie Gnonto to a new contract. We've kept hold of Max Verber. We've kept hold of other players that no doubt will have had some interest in, probably the likes of Ampadu, Pascal Struijk maybe as well. We've signed Bogle for 5 million quid. Instantly, Bogle, if we were to sell him in January or at the end of the season, is worth treble, probably, with a full contract, because we've got him in his last year of his deal. So it is effective recruitment. It's smart recruitment, and it's the right thing to do for a business, and the players are quality. They're not just signing players for the sake of signing players. I've made that point quite a few times over the last couple of weeks. So, yeah, I don't think anybody can grumble with the business, mate. I really don't.
No, because I mean, you looked at the transfer window last year. You looked at that kind of Ampadu, Rodon type signing, Kamara. I know we sold him this year, but that kind of clever, low fee signing for players at decent ages, not ridiculously young, not over the hill. And we've done it again. I feel like we've kind of done it again. We've pulled those type of signings out of the bag again. So yeah, I totally agree with you. Looking back then on the on August, obviously it was a bit of a ropey start, Jason. I think we were all kind of fearing the worst at that point after what happened in August last year. The kind of nadir was the Middlesbrough game, possibly some would argue the West Brom game as well. But we've nicely turned it around since then. How do you think we feel about this August that's just gone overall? Then are you kind of, taking everything into concern? Do you think actually we're all right here? We're in 4th place in the league, and we've kind of not got away with it, but we've at least improved on last year.
You know, for me, Brian, this is going to sound a little bit simple, but I think we were a Brendan Aronson goal away from it being an absolutely unbelievable start to the season. In hindsight, you know, looking back at it, if Brendan had put that the other side of the post, would have been sat there with 3 wins, 1 draw, and would have been saying balls to the cup. That's the truth. And, you know, that week we went through a bit of turbulence. I think the players obviously found out before kick-off about Rutter. Should that make a difference? No, they should be professionals. But at the end of the day, you're looking at losing a fantastic player, a friend, somebody that's a mass amount of fun around the place. Like, if I were a player in that dressing room, I'd be a bit dejected as well. And, you know, whatever happened in that second half happened. But I don't think it's had any kind of impact on our then performances since. I think the West Brom game was very much damage limitation, went there against a good side and got a point away from home. And again, I think if you'd have had the Portsmouth win and then we'd have had that on the back of it, I think it'd have been very, very different. Whereas we only then had a point on the board. It felt a little bit murky. But, you know, since that West Brom game, we've had 3 clean sheets in a row after obviously shipping a few on the opening day. And we've looked extremely comfortable, I would say, in each of the games. Even the West Brom game, in which we didn't create much, we didn't also give up much either. We looked comfortable within the game. So I can't grumble with the start to the season at all. You know, starts of seasons have some strange results anyway. We've seen some throughout the whole of the league, not just involving Leeds United. Luton have not got going. You know, Burnley have lost games that you'd have expected them to win. Sheffield United have dropped points in games that you'd have expected to win. They were beating QPR 2-0 at home and ended up bombing it. You know, like these results are happening around us, you know. And with the exception, I think, of Sunderland, they're the only team that have won every game. And I don't expect that to continue.
No. Do you think, I got the sense going into this season, Jason, and I'll hold my hands up, I'm guilty of this. It was like eyes were on Farke, and the first sign of it not going well, we were going to get on Farke's back. It felt like there was a bit of an not anti-Farke, but it felt like after that Portsmouth game, it was like, okay, we've got the opportunity to kind of criticise him, and it's that thing of, well, we told you this is what he's like, and it's a
carryover from last season, isn't it?
Yeah. And then obviously you lose Rutter, and it just absolutely everyone's miserable. You then go and draw your next game, you lose to Middlesbrough, you get absolutely thumped, and it just felt like, I mean, at that point you're almost like, how long's Farke going to get here? And it felt very much like that narrative was building and building and building until basically the Ramazani signing. And
I think that's fair.
It spun it on his head, but I think it's going to be pressure for Farke all the way through, isn't it? It's not going to let up.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. And I think, you know, you can't just deal with it in isolation. It's not just one game when you lose to Middlesbrough or you don't win any of the opening 2 games in the league. It takes it back to 2 wins in 13 or 14 or whatever it was going into last season. We remember QPR away. We remember the playoff final. We remember the Middlesbrough, you know, back and forth 4-3 game and the lack of control. We remember Sunderland at home, Blackburn at home. You know, these things then start rearing their heads. So and that's fair, you know, like as a manager and as a club, like that is absolutely fair, because you have to look at trends. It's not just the opening couple of games. So I think you're absolutely right. When Ramazani signed, it kind of burst a bubble of pressure, because we'd not done a deal in, I think it was 4 weeks since we'd signed Bogle at the time. And then, you know, thankfully the performance away at Sheffield Wednesday really, I think, did a lot for him. And for the club, and we played extremely well that day. But you're right, the pressure is going to be on Daniel Farke all season, and it should be. Like, it absolutely should be. Like, you're manager of Leeds United, you're manager of the second highest valuation team in the league, I think, behind Burnley. We might even have the highest now, perhaps, I can't remember. I think it's something like 34th in the world in terms of valuation of starting 11. It's ridiculous. Like, you know, you've got an unbelievable squad at your disposal. You know, you've got some real potential and pedigree within that side. You've got internationals all over it. You know, look at how many players that have got away on international duty. So yeah, I think the pressure should be on him, and that doesn't mean that you know, if we lose one game, we should be thinking about sacking him. It doesn't. But if we lose one game, it should be there to be scrutinised. And then when you go into the next game, the pressure's on you even more. And if you do lose again, you then are answering more difficult questions, because you're not managing Stoke. No. You're not managing Norwich. Yeah, I'm sorry, that's just the way that it is. And this comes back to the Leeds United arrogance a little bit, and I get it. But that is the job that you sign up for. Yeah. Just like it would be if, Villa in the Championship's a great example. Newcastle in the Championship's a great example. Like
West Ham,
West Ham's another great example. So, and these managers have dealt with that pressure before, and you have to deal with it now if you want to be a success at Leeds United. It's as simple as that. So yeah, no excuses at all. And I want, me and you both were very open and vocal about saying that we need to be front and center all the way through. And I would say, now we're still fourth, and I would say that by the end of October, we need to be top of the league, and we need to be 5 or 6 points clear. I still feel exactly the same way about it.
Yeah. You mentioned it just a few minutes ago as well about some of the other teams in the league and looking at the competition as a whole. Like you say, obviously it's been, some surprises in there with Luton, currently sitting second bottom. Sunderland won every game so far. You've got Sheffield United kind of lingering there in 8th, drawing 2 and winning 2 as well. What have you kind of made of the competition so far? And it definitely for me doesn't feel anything like last year in terms of what we're going to be facing.
It's not a patch.
No.
Southampton made hard work of last season, but they had a fantastic squad. They had a real fantastic. I think I picked them to finish top 2 at the beginning of last season. There were a little bit of the unknown with Russell Martin. I don't think he'll see the season out in the Premier League because he won't change. And when the level steps up and you've got inferior players trying to play in the way that they are, they're just going to constantly get caught out. That said, them and Leicester were head and shoulders above our direct competition this season. And I would say Burnley, Sheffield United and Luton as them 3. Now, Luton obviously have had the start that they've had. They'll probably bring it around. I like their manager. I like Rob Edwards. I think he's a good manager. But it seems to be that they're having a bit of a hangover from not playing Premier League football and not playing in the style that they were playing against. They were up against it every week. It was against the world, and nobody had any expectations on them for a whole season. Whereas this season, they're expected to be front and centre. They are expected to win games more often than not. So it changes, doesn't it? It changes the levels. And the fact is Luton will probably find their position back in the pyramid along where this sounds really bad, but where they belong. They probably will end up back mid to bottom end Championship because they were so out of kilt where they were when they got promoted. They did unbelievably well, but they should never have been there with the playing squad that they had. And then you look through Burnley and Sheffield United. I had a look at Burnley's team at the weekend, and the stats lining up with Josh Laurent in centre midfield, who has played a few years at Stoke, is a bang average Championship centre midfielder. Jadon Anthony lined up on the left after signing 2 days prior. It shows how desperate they were to get him in, and he started straight away. Jadon Anthony won't get anywhere near this team. I don't even think he'd get in the squad.
I feel sorry for him. He's like the kind of last-ditch loan effort you bring in, isn't he? A kind of last scrape for a deal.
Burnley are really struggling because they've not got any available funds. So they've had to basically sign up to some deals which are big obligations in 12 months' time should they get promoted. If they get promoted with Jadon Anthony in the squad, they've got to pay 10 million quid for Jadon Anthony as a permanent deal in the Premier League. And they were desperately fighting on deadline day for a striker. I forget who it was now. But they basically wanted to sign him on loan because it was the only way that they could get the deal done. They ended up keeping Trafford and Lyle Foster, who I think Lyle Foster particularly is a good signing, a good player to keep. Sorry, he was linked with Ipswich, who had an awful deadline of the day as well, by the way. Hilarious. But yeah, they signed Hannibal on deadline day as well. They signed Zane Fleming from Millwall. It's just reeks of Championship. Like if we'd have signed Zane Fleming from Millwall, would have been like basically our version of Rothwell. That's basically what it is. You know what I mean? So I look through that squad, signing Connor Roberts, who couldn't get it ahead of 17-year-old centre midfielder at right back last season in our team. They signed Joe Worrell from Nottingham Forest, Brownie. It's like signing Liam Cooper in his mid-20s. Like it's just Championship. It just stinks of Championship. So I'm just not worried by him. And, again, this is why, and Farke is going to want to play this down, but that's the truth. Our squad is head and shoulders above theirs. Head and shoulders. And I class Sheffield United in that too. Sarmiento signed on loan from, where did he come from? Brighton.
Yeah.
Signed on loan from Brighton. He couldn't get off Ipswich's bench last season. He couldn't start games for them. So again, it's just a Championship signing. Whereas we signed Manor Solomon.
Yeah.
It's just total levels between the signings. So yeah, no excuses.
No, exactly. And speaking of Burnley, it's Burnley next after the international break. I mean, with everything you say there, Jason, I'm just looking at it and going, look, we should show what we're about. It's Farke's second year. We're settled. Okay, there's obviously been a bit of upheaval in the transfer window, but I mean, you're still the quality that you've replaced the players with, and there's still a lot of players there, stalwarts from last season. You look at the centre-back pairing, Nonto, Ampadu, Gruev, there's that continuity and what should be assuredness there.
Yeah.
When it comes to playing Burnley, that's going to be a really good barometer of us versus them in terms of where they're at with kind of all the craziness and chaos they've been through, and where we should be kind of 12 months on from our crazy kind of chaotic summer. So you'd really be looking at, Jason, what you're saying, look, that's where you've got to put your foot on the pedal and just show your quality, put them to the sword, and let's climb that league and, like you say, try and get on top and then get some points away from these teams.
Yeah, I agree completely. And I mean, we're not just going to blow our way through every single game. We're not going to just win every single game, home or away. But the facts are is that, again, we should have the quality difference to deal with these teams. And Daniel Farke, to be fair to him, last season beat pretty much everybody around us, with the exception of Southampton. He had a good record against teams that were directly in competition with us. Beat Ipswich home and away, beat Leicester home and away. West Brom were tricky games. I kind of give him a pass for the West Brom loss because I thought we were really unfortunate that day. And at home, we were actually much the better team and got kind of robbed out of 3 points that day. So, yeah, I think, Norwich we beat quite comfortably. So, yeah, I think it needs to be a game that we grab by the scruff of the neck and we go and we win it comfortably and really set a marker down in the ground, if you like, to say, we're the team to beat. And, we go and take 3 points, because that's really all that matters, isn't it? Is that we go out and we take 3 points. I still would expect Burnley to be in and around it, but I just doubt Scott Parker's got the capabilities of dealing with it without just a ridiculous abundance of talent. And both the Bournemouth side that he got promoted through the playoffs when he should have gone up automatically, and Fulham, who he should have gone up with automatically, but it got the playoffs. Both of them were stacked with talent, whereas this Burnley team isn't now. They've got some good players. Koleosho's still there. Esteve at the back, I think, is a really good keep. I felt sure he would leave. I think Mike Trezor's still there as well. They have still got some talent, but I don't think it's anywhere near what ours is. I really don't. We should be head and shoulders, and if we're not, that's down to Daniel Farke and the players, not the board, not the recruitment, not the fact that we didn't get a number 10. Because look through all of the squads, they all have gaps. They all have gaps.
Absolutely. Good stuff. Well, I don't think there's much else to cover at the moment, Jason, unless you can think of anything you've got a burning desire to get off your chest before we go.
No, smelly international break. I wish we were
the
game of the weekend. I might be going to the Burnley game, which will be nice to just making some arrangements around that, hopefully. So that could be quite nice. And I know that you're away on that day, so we probably will maybe do the review on the Sunday.
Yeah, I'm hoping to watch the game. Obviously, I don't want to miss that. But then we'll do the review probably the day after.
Yeah. So no, onwards and upwards, mate. Just get football back quickly.
Sod off international break. Yeah. God's sake. Good stuff. All right. Well, just a shorter one than usual for myself and Jason. We will be back again next week. Please do like the video, subscribe to the channel as well. Keep an eye out for our other socials as well. We're on TikTok. We're on Twitch as well. We're even on Twitch. Remember Twitch? So do give us a follow on there as well. But thank you very much for watching. I've been Stephen Brown. Alongside me has been Jason Booker. Jason, thank you very much, mate.
Thank you, mate.
And we will see you again next time. Bye-bye.